Hello, Vincent Carroll speaking. This is tutorial number 36, Bell's palsy. Bell's palsy is a fairly common paralysis of the seventh cranial nerve called the facial nerve. The seventh cranial nerve originates in the brain and goes directly onto its target, which is the face, which are the facial muscles, the muscles of facial expression. In order to do that, it exits the skull with the stylomastoid foramen, and it is at that area where injury can occur to the nerve. So for example, if there's a viral infection, that viral infection can affect nerve signal transmission of the nerve. Usually it's a nerve, well, it has both a sensory and a motor function. The motor function is the better known function of the seventh cranial nerve, the facial nerve, because it powers up the muscles of facial expression. But the taste on the distal 2/3 of the tongue, and that sensory, also is part of the facial nerve as well, the seventh cranial nerve. So the seventh cranial nerve goes onto the face. Usually with Bell's palsy is one side or other, and there's inflammation of that nerve from a Western medical point of view because of viral reasons. It is essential from a Western medical point of view to get steroids administered immediately that Bell's palsy is diagnosed. And Bell's palsy is diagnosed by a unilateral, that's one side only, drooping or dropping of the face. That could mean all the muscles of facial expression. So it means if a person smiles, there will be an exaggerated emphasis on the good side, whereas the side affected by the Bell's palsy won't move, it is paralysed. But to somebody not experienced, it could appear that the good side is the side that is affected for the very simple reason there's gross exaggeration of the muscles of facial expression on the good side to compensate for those muscles that are not working on the failed side. So in other words, if a person had, say, left-sided Bell's palsy and smiled, the right side would give an exaggerated sense of facial expression, but the affected side would be completely dead and drooping. So therefore a proper diagnosis is very, very important. It's absolutely nothing to do with a stroke. It's completely different. It is simply a cranial nerve that is affected, usually by a virus. But viruses cause swelling. When the nerve is going through the stylomastoid foramina, what happens is there isn't space for it because of the swelling, and that disrupts the signal. And if that signal is disrupted for more than, I would say, 24 hours, you can have quite permanent damage from a Western medical point of view of the muscles of facial expression. Certainly up to 72 hours is worthwhile getting steroids, but the sooner they're given, the merrier. The quicker they're given, the greater the possibility of a full recovery. Bell's palsy can occur repeatedly in people. Many people have many episodes of Bell's palsy. So from an acupuncture medical point of view, what's happening? We see it as an external condition, and we see it as a wind condition. External wind affects the face and paralyzes the face. So you can get, for example, a distressing drooling at the side of the lips. Your eyes sometimes have difficulty closing, so eyes might have to be taped across at bed at night. A person cannot frown or use the muscles in their forehead on one side only, and of course on the other side they are exaggerated. A person chewing will have difficulty, so they can only really eat and chew on the side of the face that is not affected. And the muscles that produce chewing, the masseter muscle on the affected side also is incapable of operating. So therefore that would correspond to stomach 6 from an acupuncture point of view. And the way we find stomach 6 is to ask somebody to clench their jaw, and the masseter muscles immediately pop up. But of course in Bell's palsy it doesn't pop up on the side effectors. So we have to estimate where it is off the angle of the jaw. Other muscles, it's really a matter of maybe using things like gallbladder 13, 14, 15 in order to, and electroacupuncture is incredibly important to get those muscles moving. You really ask what you're trying to achieve. You might try to curl up the side of the lip, maybe by putting electroacupuncture on stomach number 4 and maybe stomach number 3 to try to curl up. But it's trial and error. There's no particular best practice guideline here. It's trial and error with your electroacupuncture and multiple needles to try to see what you're trying to achieve. It could be to curl up a lip, it could be to close an eye, it could be to create facial expression on the forehead, it could be to get the masseter muscle going. And usually it's a combination of things, because Bell's palsy can be quite dense, or it can just affect smaller amounts. And when people come to see us, it's often with residue. They often have made a partial recovery, and then you have to assess what else needs to be done to bring the person back to 100%. I find it very useful after doing electroacupuncture, after needling, after doing electroacupuncture, to put the person in front of a mirror and to get them to use and work their face using, I suppose, massaging with their hand to try to make the muscles get back into action. And that can be a very, very helpful thing to do. Usually, from an acupuncture point of view, it's extremely successful. Acupuncture is very, very good. Even when people have had Bell's palsy that's dense for many years, and from a Western medical point of view, there's absolutely nothing you can do. From an acupuncture medical point of view, you can restore an enormous amount of function back by using acupuncture, especially electroacupuncture. So it's never give up, never say never, that it's too late. How do you treat it? Well, you can get repeated episodes, so get the person to avoid the stimulus if possible. Usually it's wind, very, very windy conditions. I had one lady who came to me and she got it walking on Bettystown Beach in County Meath. So I treated her and she did very well, and 6 months later she came back again with Bell's palsy. I said, what happened to you? She got it walking on Bettystown Beach in County Meath. So that was fine, treated her, she went away, she was fine. A number of months later she came back again with Bell's palsy, and I said, what happened this time? She said, I got it again, walking on Bettystown Beach in County Meath. At that point, let's use a bit of common sense. The best solution is simply to avoid going for a walk on Bettystown Beach in County Meath, because after all, that seemed to be the wind there. Whatever she was doing, or whatever way she was exposing herself, she was particularly vulnerable. So we have to look after ourselves. The moral of the story is we have to look after ourselves. We have to be aware that wind on the face in a tiny number of situations can cause Bell's palsy. If you do get Bell's palsy, let's combine both systems of medicine. Go for steroids. Get into the casualty, get your steroids, and come for acupuncture. And usually the recovery is as near to 100% as possible. Thank you.